What is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Got a lot of overachievers on the line, and I'm just guessing that maybe there's people out there, maybe who spend some time multitasking. You know, I know that I never do, but maybe there's some other people, right?
Yeah.
And in your book, you said that there's actually studies that show that multitasking is counterproductive and not only creates a decline in our performance, but also unnecessarily stresses the brain.
Yeah, so it always surprises me that this is still a topic, because what's so funny is I remember, studying this and teaching this. I've been teaching this for the last 10 years, and more studies keep coming out. So I keep thinking, okay, people know this by now. I don't want to keep preaching the same thing. But it never fails. We always go back to this conversation about multitasking, because people feel like it's their only option. People feel like their work environment is forcing them to multitask. And what I want people to understand is that we do have multiple priorities, and that's very different from multitasking. So yes, there are multiple things going on throughout the day, and we have to take on a lot of different functions and wear different hats. But the important thing is that when we do each task, we're fully engaged in that task. And what so often happens is that we start feeling the pressure, the stress to get more done in less time. And so we shift out of energy focus and into time focus. And time focus tells us if I do two things at once, it's better than doing one. In fact, there's a commercial out about that now that I show in my presentation that always makes me laugh. The problem with doing two things is that we don't do either of them well. And there are some very clear studies that show that performance and productivity levels go down. We only have a limited amount of brain power at any given time. In fact, you can actually measure that. I don't remember what it is. I think it's in hertz or something, but there's a number. And so when we're trying to split that up between different tasks, obviously that decreases how much we have. We also have a limited amount of what we call cortical real estate. So the actual areas of the brain that can be working can only really work on one thing at a time. And you can see that in brain scans now. So I think it's bringing more light to this topic that, okay, now we're looking inside the brain and seeing this doesn't work so well for us. But the piece of it that I always try to focus on is, regardless of productivity, you are unnecessarily stressing the brain because the brain is not designed to handle multiple things. So going back again, I always try to go back and think, okay, I know what Heidi thinks, but what is this brain thinking? Because it is very primitive. If I were in a survival situation and I had to do multiple things at once and I was under a time deadline, that's a threat to my survival. So those stress hormones go up, hoping to support me in that in case there's a need to fight or flight or freeze or whatever that stress response might be. But I'm sitting at my desk typing on a computer with all of those hormones flooding.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
My system. So now that's becoming toxic. It causes an inflammatory response throughout the body, and it also interferes with communication channels in the brain. So you can see very clearly when people are under stress that the core of the brain, or the amygdala center, the stress center, is fired up, and it actually interferes with communication to the logical, thoughtful part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. So now you can see very clearly what the problem is, what's getting in the way. So all of these different sources competing for your time and energy causes an increase in stress, which as a result increases that toxic cortisol to the brain, which, by the way, cortisol can actually kill brain cells on contact. So it is by far the worst thing for you from a long-term perspective for your health and aging and all those sorts of things. I mean, I could go on and on and on about multitasking. The challenge is the story we tell ourselves that says, I need to multitask, I need to get more done in less time, even when our heart is believing that we will be more successful if we do one thing at a time. So as you know so well, the key is building in supportive rituals that are going to help us, because in the moment when we're feeling the pressure, we're going to slip back into, autopilot, which is going to say, do more, do more, do more. And we need those rituals that are going to support us to do just one thing at a time. Even if it's just every now and then. That's the thing. Training the brain like a muscle. If we can strengthen our ability to single task, the more that we do that, the more comfortable we get with that, the more multitasking is actually going to feel uncomfortable. And that's how the change process starts to happen.
Okay, so in this case, practice makes perfection or perfect.
In this case, practice makes focus. I'm trying to think of the right thing to say, but yeah, it gives us a chance to actually rewire how our brain operates. I mean, that's the exciting thing about brain science and neuroplasticity, is that we may have done something a certain way our whole entire life, but if we give our brain the right sort of training, in this case, if we train it to focus on one thing at a time and allow it the right recovery time to recover and repair from that, it will rebuild new pathways that will pull us in the right direction.
Right. And I guess what I meant by that practice is, if we take that muscle example again, is that if we don't put any focus there, right, and we just go to the gym once, right, how effective is that for getting people fit to go once? Well, I went.
Absolutely.
I should be fine now. And I know there's a lot of people who think that when they join the gym membership in the beginning of the year, they go once and that's good enough. But it's that repetitive, as you said, getting a clear process together of doing consistently, practicing it, and also having that recovery in between. And I kind of think for those listeners out there, the most important thing is to support yourself with an environment that supports you in achieving that. Because, hey, I know that it might be a shocker for some of you out there, maybe not for those of you who know me, but I struggle with this deep-seated root belief that says, hey, you're going to get more done if you multitask. And I find that I need to set myself up with different structures around myself, whether it's setting a timer and setting objectives before I sit down. What am I going to achieve in this 50-minute slot? What are my outcomes? So that I'm very clearly focused on it. And that helps me to eliminate everything else and also shut down the email and the text and all of that other stuff that can possibly be distractions. And it's that supportive environment that I create that helps me to continue to do that. And it kind of starts and then builds into a ritual, right? If you've got the right tools and support around you.
Exactly. And also keeping in mind, too, the more kind of basic steps of balancing brain chemistry, again, is that when we do that, when we do our deep breathing practice or meditation practice, we're building a more resilient system so that we can resist the temptation to multitask more effectively. So it's not just what we do around that time frame that's so important, as you mentioned, setting the right environment. That's critical. Yes. We need to do that, but we also need to make sure that our brain isn't all jacked up in stress hormones to start with, which is going to cause us to slide back into that by taking those breaks and setting them into your schedule and recognizing them as a priority. I've started to tell myself my newest mantra is meditation's mandatory, because for me, starting the morning with 20 minutes of breathing and ending my day that way and transitioning, I'm a totally different person. I used to recognize that about going to the gym, but now I recognize I need to do the same thing for my brain, and I make better choices throughout the day. So it's not just the benefit that you get in that moment of practice, but the resilience that you build by doing that over time.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.